I never thought I'd stare down the barrel of a loaded syringe, but there I was, veins itching for the experimental cocktail that promised to rewrite my reality. It wasn't suicide, it was rebirth. The kind that lets you slip into someone else's skin and make them pay for every scar they carved into yours. And trust me, after what they'd done, I wasn't asking for forgiveness. I was demanding blood, even if it had to be metaphorical. Call it karma with a PhD in revenge, in the heartland of America, where justice is just another word for who pays the most. I was about to flip the script. My name is Harper Ellis, and for the last 5 years, I've been the punchline in a joke that wasn't funny. It started in the sticky heat of a Kansas City summer, back when I thought love was blind and marriage was forever. Ethan Hargrove, tall, broad-shouldered, with that easy Midwestern charm that hit a spine of steel, swept into my life like a tornado funneling through a trailer park. I was 25, fresh out of community college with a nursing degree and dreams bigger than my bank account. He was 32, a rising star at Hargrove and Associates, the kind of law firm that defended big agri-giants against poisoned wells and bankrupt farmers. We met at a charity gala for the local food bank. I was volunteering, pouring cheap Merlot into plastic cups, and he was schmoozing donors in a suit that cost more than my rent. "You're too pretty to be slinging drinks," he said, flashing that grin that made my knees buckle. By the end of the night, we danced under paper lanterns strung like nooses, and 6 months later, we were married in a shotgun ceremony at his family's sprawling estate outside Overland Park. The Hargroves, old money from cattle barons who'd pivoted to corn syrup empires, tolerated me like a stray dog they decided to keep indoors. But Ethan's mother, Vivian, oh, she made it clear from day one, I was the mud on their Persian rugs. The mocking started small. "Darling, that dress, did you get it from the JCPenney clearance rack? Ethan deserves Chanel." We'd be at Sunday brunch in her sunroom, crystal clinking against bone china, and she'd say it with a laugh that tinkled like breaking glass. I'd smile, cheeks burning, because what else could I do? Ethan would squeeze my hand under the table, whispering, "Ignore her, babe. She's just old school." But old school meant blue blood, and I was the help who'd gotten ideas above her station. Then came the whispers. Vivian's Bridge Club ladies, women with Botox-frozen faces and husbands in the state senate, would eye me like I'd tracked in the plague. "Such a spirited girl," one would coo, while another muttered about how Ethan could do better than that nurse from the wrong side of the state line. Missouri girl, born in Joplin to a single mom who waitress doubles at Denny's. Yeah, I was the punchline. But I loved him. Or at least, I loved the version of him he showed me, the one who brought me wildflowers from the roadside stands and promised we'd build a life away from the family shadow. The betrayal hit like a freight train derailing in the dead of night. It was 2 years into the marriage, a crisp October evening when the leaves outside our Overland Park colonial turned the color of dried blood. I'd come home early from my shift at Truman Medical, arms full of groceries for the pot roast Ethan swore was his favorite. The house was too quiet, the kind of quiet that presses against your eardrums. Upstairs, in our bedroom, the one with the 4-poster bed his mother had gifted us like a dowry of disdain, I found them. Ethan, naked and tangled in our Egyptian cotton sheets. With her, Lila Voss, 28, leggy blonde with an MBA from Vanderbilt and a laugh like champagne bubbles. She was the junior associate at his firm, the one he'd mentioned in passing as sharp as a tack. Sharp enough to sink her teeth into my husband while I was clocking overtime to cover the mortgage. They didn't even hear me at first. She was on top, riding him with the confidence of someone who knew she wasn't the wife, just the upgrade. And when she saw me in the doorway, frozen like a deer in headlights, she didn't scream or cover up. She laughed. God. That laugh. It echoed off the vaulted ceilings, sharp and silver, like Vivian's, but without the patina of age. Oops, she said, tossing her hair, not bothering to dismount. Honey, you're home early. Ethan bolted upright, face paling to the color of uncooked dough, stammering apologies that dissolved into nothing when I dropped the grocery bags. Oranges rolled across the hardwood like severed heads, and I just stood there, the world tilting on its axis. I didn't scream, didn't throw things. I turned and walked out, drove aimlessly through the suburbs until the tank ran dry on the shoulder of I-435. By morning, Ethan was at my motel door with roses and regrets, swearing it was a mistake, that Lila meant nothing, that Vivian had put him up to it, some bullshit about testing my loyalty, as if I were the one who'd failed. I believed him because I was a fool, because the alternative was dismantling everything I'd built. We went to counseling, the kind with leather couches and self-help books. Vivian hosted reconciliation dinners, where she'd pat my hand and murmur, "Boys will be boys. Dear. You'll learn." And Lila? She got transferred to the DC office, a promotion courtesy of Ethan's connections. Out of sight, but never out of mind. But the real knife twist came 6 months later, when the body they found in the Missouri River washed up like driftwood from a forgotten crime. Dr. Elias Thorne, senior partner at Hargrove and Associates, Vivian's lover of 2 decades, the man who'd bankrolled Ethan's career with dirty money from falsified land deals and bribed inspectors. Thorne was bloated and blue, a single gunshot wound to the temple hidden under the current until the coroner fished him out near the old stockyards. The cops came for me at dawn. "Harper Hargrove, you're under arrest for the murder of Elias Thorne." Me. The nurse who'd spent her wedding night learning Viv's recipes for beef Wellington. The evidence was a slam dunk. My prints on the .38 found in the river mud, fibers from my scrubs on the body, and, crowning glory, a witness who swore they saw me arguing with Thorne at the firm the night before. But I hadn't. I'd been home, alone, binge-watching true crime docs while Ethan worked late. It unraveled fast. Vivian testified first, her voice quivering like a violin string about how I'd snapped after learning of Ethan's affair, how I'd confessed to her in a fit of rage that I'd make them all pay. Lies. Every one. But delivered with the conviction of a woman who'd once stared down a jury of her peers and won custody of a fortune. Then Lila, flown in from DC on the firm's jet, took the stand in a power suit that screamed innocence. She described me as unhinged, claimed I'd cornered her in the ladies' room at a firm mixer, hissing threats about burying your secrets with you. The courtroom in downtown Kansas City buzzed like a hive, reporters from the Star scribbling furiously, locals murmuring about the nurse gone mad. Ethan didn't testify. He sat in the back row, eyes downcast, avoiding my gaze like I was Medusa. But Vivian's mocking? It came during cross-examination, when my public defender, a harried kid fresh from KU Law, pressed her on inconsistencies. "Mrs. Hargrove," he said, "did you ever witness Harper exhibit violent tendencies?" She leaned into the mic, pearls glinting under the fluorescence, and said, "Violent? No, dear. Just desperate. Like a cornered animal lashing out at those who have what it can never be, The gallery tittered. And Lila, waiting her turn, caught my eye from the prosecution table and laughed, soft, conspiratorial, like we were sharing a dirty joke. I was done. The jury deliberated for 2 hours. Guilty on all counts, first-degree murder, tampering with evidence, the works. Life without parole. In the women's facility at Chillicothe, where the walls were the color of despair and the nights echoed with screams. But as the gavel fell, the judge, an old-school type named Harlan with a drawl like molasses, cleared his throat. He peered over his glasses at the prosecution's star witness list, then at me, shackled and hollow-eyed. "Objection sustained," he said, voice cutting through the hush like a blade. 3 words, case dismissed.
No.
Wait, that's not how it went. That's the dream I clung to in the dark cells. The fantasy that kept me from swallowing the jagged edge of a contraband razor. The real 3 words came later, after the appeals ran dry and the governor's pardon board laughed me out. But they were whispered in a back-alley clinic in East St. Louis, by a disgraced neuroscientist named Dr. Reyes, who'd lost his license peddling black-market psychedelics to Wall Street burnouts. "Body swap," he said, syringe glinting in the sodium light. "It's not sci-fi. It's synaptic mapping. Transfer your consciousness into a donor host. Erase yourself. Become them." It was controversial as hell. FDA blacklisted. Churches preaching damnation. But in the underbelly of America, where opioid ghosts haunted every hollow and billionaires played God with CRISPR, it was just another Tuesday. Reyes had done it twice, once for a mobster dodging the feds, once for a tech bro cheating death. The cost? 50 grand, wired from a dummy account I'd scraped together selling contraband smokes in the yard. The risk? Your old self dissolving like sugar in rain. Memories bleeding into the new flesh. But for me, it was salvation. Or damnation. Same difference. I chose Ethan. Not Lila, too risky. Her life was a fishbowl of social media and senators. Not Vivian, too old. Her arteries clogged like her conscience. Ethan was perfect, fit, connected. The puppet master who'd framed me to cover his own sins. Thorne hadn't died by my hand. He'd been silenced by Ethan after discovering the firm's slush fund, millions siphoned to offshore accounts for Viv's facelifts and Lila's condos. They'd planted the gun in my glove box during a surprise family picnic. Fibers from my laundry basket scattered, like confetti. I'd taken the fall so they could inherit clean. The procedure was agony wrapped in ecstasy, a cocktail of neural blockers and hallucinogens that peeled back my skull like an onion. I blacked out to the hum of fluorescent tubes, waking to the scent of sandalwood cologne and the weight of a Rolex on my wrist.
No, his wrist.
My wrist now. I was in his penthouse overlooking the plaza, staring at a reflection that wasn't mine. Chiseled jaw, green eyes flecked with guilt I now wore like a mask. Harper Ellis was gone, archived in a server farm outside Reno. Ethan Hargrove was me. The power surged through me like moonshine fire. I accessed his emails first, codes I'd memorized from our shared life. There it was, the kill file. Encrypted chats with Lila about the nurse problem, Vivian's voice memos plotting the frame job. She'll crack. Viv had purred. They always do. The little ones. Rage boiled. Hot and holy. But revenge isn't a sprint, it's a marathon through minefields. I started small. Canceled Lila's DC lease, routing funds to a shell corp that audited her expense reports. She texted me, frantic. Babe, what's happening? They're saying embezzlement. I replied with his signature emoji, a winking devil. Let her squirm. Vivian was next. I showed up at the estate unannounced, in one of his bespoke suits, carrying a bottle of her favorite Veuve. Mother, I said, voice dropping an octave to match his timbre. We need to talk about Harper. She poured, oblivious, her mockery bubbling up like always. That wretched girl? Good riddance. She was dragging you down, Ethan. Now you can marry properly. I smiled. Ethan's smile, and watched her sip the wine laced with a slow-release anxiolytic, Rhea's bonus gift. Enough to unravel nerves without a trace. By midnight, she was pacing the sunroom, shadows twisting her face into a gargoyle's snarl, convinced the walls were whispering her secrets. But the real fun? The firm. I walked into Hargrove and Associates Monday morning, slapping backs, barking orders. The partners blinked. Ethan Hargrove, suddenly decisive, greenlighting audits on Viv's pet projects. Clean house, I told them, eyes cold. Whispers spread. Midlife crisis. Burnout? Lila called from D.C. Voice honeyed panic. Ethan, fix this. I can't lose everything. I laughed her laugh, that silver peel, and hung up. The trap was springing, jaws wide. Power is a drug, and I was hooked from the first boardroom takedown. Sitting at the head of that polished mahogany table, Ethan's voice rumbling from my throat, I dismantled the empire brick by embezzled brick. The firm had been a fortress of favoritism, Vivian pulling strings for no-show contractors, Ethan signing off on kickbacks from Monsanto proxies.
Now.
I was the wrecking ball. We're going transparent, I announced at the quarterly meeting, projecting spreadsheets that bled red ink. Gasps rippled through the suits. Old man Hargrove, Ethan's father, long retired to golf in Scottsdale, called from his speakerphone, voice crackling like dry leaves.
Son.
What the hell? This is suicide. It's evolution. Dad, I replied, channeling Ethan's cocky lilt. Or, do you want the feds knocking when the Times exposes the Thorne payout? That shut him up. Thorne's death payout, $5 million funneled through a Cayman trust, had been the linchpin. Insurance against the old man's loose lips. I'd leaked anonymized docs to a stringer at the pitch. Kansas City's alt-weekly vultures circling for scandal. By lunch, his inbox overflowed with subpoenas and panicked voicemails. Lila's was the sweetest. Ethan, you bastard. If this is about her, I'll bury you both. Her.
Me.
The ghost in the machine. It thrilled me. This inversion, being the shadow that haunted them. Nights, I'd prowl the penthouse, rifling drawers for mementos of our life. The locket I'd given him on our anniversary, engraved with Forever Yours. H, tucked in a sock drawer like contraband. His cologne bottles, half-empty testaments to mornings we'd shared. I spritzed one on, inhaling the ghost of us, and plotted. Revenge wasn't just destruction, it was desecration, making them feel the hollowness I'd carried for years. Vivian cracked first. The drugs did their work slow, insidious, paranoia blooming like black mold in her psyche. She started calling at odd hours, Ethan's phone buzzing with voicemails that devolved from imperious to incoherent. Ethan, they're watching me. The bridge ladies, they know about Elias. Tell Lila to stop laughing in my dreams. I'd listen on speaker, sipping scotch from his decanter, a smile curling lips that weren't mine. Once, I drove out to the estate under cover of a storm, thunder rattling the windows like divine applause. She answered the door in a silk robe, eyes wild, hair a silver tangle.
Ethan?
What have you done? I stepped inside, dripping rain on her foyer tiles. Mother, it's time you confessed. She backed away, clutching a rosary like it could ward off the devil I'd become. I played the recordings, her own voice, damning memos about framing me, the gun handoff in the garage shadows. Her face crumpled, the mockery leaching out like poison from a wound. It was for the family, she whispered, sinking onto the velvet chaise. Thorne was going to ruin us.
You.
You were collateral. Collateral. That's what I was, a speed bump on the road to their dynasty. I didn't kill her. That would be too merciful.
Too quick.
Instead, I left her with a flash drive, copies of everything, addressed to the DA's office. Mail it tomorrow, I said, Ethan's voice soft as a lullaby. Or the Post gets the unredacted version. She nodded. Broken. The matriarch reduced to a mewling thing. As I drove back through the sheets of rain, lightning forking the sky, I felt the first crack in my armor. Ethan's memories were seeping in, flashes of boardrooms and bourbon, Lila's breath hot on his neck, Vivian's approval like sunlight after storm. Was I still Harper? Or was I becoming the monster I'd skinned? Lila was the high-wire act. She flew back to Casey on the red-eye, storming the penthouse like a fury in Louboutins. I buzzed her up, lounging in boxers and a robe, his ritual for late-night trysts. She burst in, cheeks flushed, eyes blazing. What the fuck? Ethan? Embezzlement charges? My career's in the toilet because of your little guilt trip over the trash wife. There it was, the laugh, bubbling up involuntary, cruel as ever. But now it was my laugh, twisted through his vocal cords. I rose, slow, letting the robe slip just enough to remind her of what she'd lost. Sit down, Lila. We need to talk about Harper. She froze, then sneered, perching on the leather sectional like a queen on her throne. That psycho bitch? She's rotting where she belongs. You think I feel bad? She was never good enough for you. I poured her a gin and tonic, her poison, laced with a microdose of the same brew that had undone Viv. Not enough to shatter, just to loosen tongues. As she sipped, I circled, Ethan's baritone dropping low. Tell me about the gun. How it ended up in her car. Her eyes widened, but the drugs were working, eroding the edges of her certainty. Words tumbled out. The garage meetup, Viv's gloved handoff, the fibers planted during a friendly lunch where they'd spiked my tea with sedatives to get my prints on the weapon. It was easy, Lila admitted, voice slurring into confession. She was so trusting. Like a lamb. I leaned in, close enough to smell her Chanel no.
5.
And whispered, and now. Panic flickered, but hubris held. She laughed again, defiant, diamond hard.
Now?
You're mine, Ethan. Always were. That's when I kissed her, deep and devouring, pulling her into the bedroom where it had all begun. She melted, oblivious to the phone recording every moan, every murmured secret. By dawn, she was asleep, spent, and I was emailing the files to her firm's ethics board, CCing the Kansas City Star. Anonymous tip, the subject read. Associate boss, affair, conspiracy, and a dead partner. The fallout was biblical. Lila's D.C. office suspended her pending investigation. Reporters camped her Georgetown brownstone, shouting questions about the Hargrove scandal. She called me him, sobbing, begging for a bailout. Ethan,
Please.
I did it for us. I texted back. Us? There is no us. Then blocked her.
Clean.
But the high faded fast. Ethan's body was a prison of its own, testosterone spikes leaving me restless, aggressive, his migraines pounding like war drums. In the mirror, I practiced Harper's smile, but it came out crooked.
Foreign.
Who was I avenging? The woman I'd been, or the ghost haunting this flesh? The climax brewed in the shadow of the Liberty Memorial, that hulking stone sentinel overlooking the city. I'd leaked enough to force a federal probe, FBI swarming the firm, agents in windbreakers hauling boxes from the 18th floor. Ethan Me testified in a closed hearing, playing the whistleblower,
Voice steady as I detailed the rot.
It starts at the top, I said, eyes locking on the prosecutor. My mother.
My
associate. Viv was arrested that afternoon, hauled from her estate in cuffs that matched her pearls. Lila turned state's evidence, flipping on everyone for immunity, her laughter silenced in a plea deal. But power corrupts, and absolute power? It rewrites your soul. As the feds closed in, I felt the swap destabilizing. Reyes had warned of synaptic bleed, the host's essence reclaiming territory. Flashes hit harder. Ethan's childhood, Viv's cold embraces, the thrill of closing a crooked deal. I started doubting. Had I really been framed? Or was there truth in their whispers? The desperate wife, unhinged by betrayal?
No.
I pushed it down, focused on the endgame. The night before the big reveal, I met Reyes in that same East St. Louis dive, the air thick with fryer grease and regret. Reverse it, he asked, eyeing the fresh syringe. 50 more grand, half my blood money. I nodded, but as the needle pricked, hesitation bloomed. One more move. I wired the final leak, Ethan's personal ledgers, tying him directly to Thorne's murder. Not conspiracy, execution. The gun, fired by his hand, not mine. I'd found the ballistics match buried in his cloud drive, a digital confession. By morning, sirens wailed through the plaza. SWAT at the penthouse door, barking his name. I didn't run. Stood in the foyer, hands raised, Ethan's face calm as a mask. Agent Ramirez, I said as they cuffed me, check the safe. You'll find everything. The world spun. Headlines screaming, Hargrove heir confesses, dynasty built on blood. But in the interrogation room, fluorescent buzz droning. The twist hit like a gut punch. Ramirez slid a file across the table, yellowed pages. My handwriting. Harper Ellis, he said. We know about the swap. Your prints on the confession?
Sloppy.
And this. He tapped a psych eval from Chillicothe. Dated weeks before my release. You weren't framed. Ellis. You pulled the trigger. Thorne caught you skimming meds from the hospital, selling opioids on the side to fund your dreams. He threatened to expose you. You shot him in a panic, dumped the body. The Hargroves covered for you, out of pity or love. Ethan took the fall in spirit.
But you.
You orchestrated it all from inside.
Lies.
Had to be. But the memory surged mine. The riverbank. Mud sucking at my shoes. Thorne's pleading eyes.
No.
I'd been clean. Or had I? The bleed was complete. Truths inverting like a Mobius strip. They say the truth will set you free, but in that sweatbox of an interrogation room, it felt more like a chokehold. Agent Ramirez leaned back, arms crossed over his Kevlar. That cop smirk saying he'd seen it all before. You think you're the victim, Harper? The swapped soul out for justice?
Cute story.
But we cracked Rhea's servers. Your neural map? It's contaminated. You uploaded before the frame-up even hit the news, testing the tech on junkies, perfecting it. Thorne was your lab rat. First real trial gone wrong. My mind reeled. Ethan's pulse hammering in my temples. Flashes assaulted me. Not just his memories, but mine. Unfiltered.
Ugly.
The nursing gig at Truman was a noble. It was a cover. Pilfering fentanyl patches for a side hustle that kept the lights on when Ethan's bonuses dried up. Thorne had discovered it during a routine firm wellness check, prescribed him oxy for a bad back. Found the discrepancies in the pharmacy logs. I'll bury you, he'd growled in my office. Breath sour with scotch. I'd begged. Then blacked out, waking to sirens. The gun hot in my grip. River water lapping at my ankles.
No.
The Hargroves had cleaned it up. Yes, Vivian with her connections. Ethan with his guilt-fueled love. They'd planted doubts. Made me the villain to protect their own. Or had they? The file Ramirez showed me included texts from my burner phone. Do it tonight. End him. Sent to myself? A loop of madness? The swap hadn't just stolen Ethan's body. It had merged our sins. Blurring victim and villain into a single, snarling beast. They shipped me to a black site psych ward outside Leavenworth, fortress walls. No windows. Shrinks in white coats peddling antipsychotics like candy. No swap reversal. Reyes had vanished. Probably sipping pina coladas in Belize with my remaining cash. Lila visited once. Through plexiglass. Her face gaunt. Laugh excised by house arrest. You win. Harper, she said. Voice flat. But was it worth it? We're all monsters now. I press my palm to the glass. Ethan's knuckles whitening. Speak for yourself. Vivian didn't come. Word was she'd lawyered up, countersuing the feds for defamation, but the bridge club had scattered like roaches. Ethan, my old body, comatose on life support after the raid's accidental tastes, lingered in a coma, brain fried from the synaptic backlash. Doctors said it was merciful. I called it justice. Poetic as a noose. Months blurred into therapy sessions and tribunal hearings. The controversy exploded. Cable news panels debating the swap scandal. Was I a wronged woman or a calculating killer? Feminists rallied outside the gates, chanting, "Free Harper, patriarchy frames first," while true crime pods dissected my dissent, blaming everything from Ozempic shortages to Midwestern malaise. Protests clogged the highways. Signs reading, "Body autonomy" or "Bust" clashing with "Justice for Thorne." I became a Rorschach test. Villain to the elite, anti-hero to the broke. The decision came on a gray November morn. Leaves skittering across the compound like fleeing rats. The judge, irony of ironies. Harlan's successor, a sharp-eyed woman from Wichita, banged her gavel in a virtual courtroom, avatars flickering like ghosts. Acquitted on grounds of diminished capacity, she intoned. The defendant's actions, while heinous, stem from experimental interference beyond legal precedent. 3 words again. Case dismissed. Cheers erupted from the feeds. Booze drowned them out. Freedom tasted like ash. They released me in Ethan's body, mine now. Legally. Per some loophole in the NDA Reyes had buried. No reversal tech existed. I was him. Forever. I walked out into the Kansas wind, reporters shoving mics like spears. Harper. Ethan. Do you regret it? I paused, camera lights blinding, and summoned a smile, half mine, half his. Regret?
Nah.
Revelation? Maybe. Turns out, we're all just one bad swap from the truth. I drove west, toward the plains that swallowed secrets whole. No triumphant return to Joplin. Mom had to disown me after the trial. Her voice on the collect call cracking. You were always too ambitious.
Girl.
Now look. Instead, I holed up in a motel off I-70. The kind with vibrating beds and Bibles in drawers. Nights, I'd stare at the ceiling cracks mapping like veins, piecing the puzzle. Had I killed Thorne? Evidence said yes. Had the Hargroves framed me clean? No. They'd covered my mess out of twisted love, only for me to unravel it in vengeance. The twist? There was no pure victim. Betrayal wasn't one-sided. It was a circle. Each of us complicit. Secrets chiseled into our bones. Lila reached out via a burner app. Months later, Viv's selling the estate. Cancer. Stage 4.
I didn't reply.
Ethan, my husk, flatlined quietly. I scattered his ashes in the Missouri, where it began. No ceremony, just the current carrying him away. As for me, I kept the name Harper Ellis, legally changed in a dusty clerk's office. Practiced law pro bono for the framed and forgotten. A ghost in pinstripes. Power's illusion lingered, but so did the hollow echo of what I'd lost. Was it happily ever after? Hell no. Or was it? The forums still rage. Was Harper a hero dismantling the 1%? Or a junkie who deserved the cage? Did the swap liberate or damn her? I scroll them sometimes, incognito on Ethan's old laptop, chuckling at the vitriol. In America, justice is a debate, not a destination. And me, I'm the punchline that punched back, scarred, swapped, and still standing. Call it revenge's cruel joke. You win the war, but lose the war within. Or maybe, just maybe, that's the real hook. What would you do, reader, with a second skin and a score to settle?
Laugh.
Mock, or swap places and see how long your soul survives.